Crazy bitch, crazy bitch, crazy bitch.
Going to your place, and now you got to freak me out. Scream so loud, getting f***ing laid. You want me to stay, but I got to make my way. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of me when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back.
My neck, my back, lick my p*** and my crack. My neck, my back, lick my p*** and my crack.
Take it off, the paper is your game. You jump in bed with fame, another one not paid in full. You're so fine, it won't be a loss. Cashing in the rocks, just to get you face to face. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it and I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back.
Get on your knees, a bitch like me moving screens. Love to know what I mean. At the club, fresh so clean. A whole hate of niggas watching me. So high in the line on green. With a unit on my face, so mean.
Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back. Come on! Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Hey, baby girl, you want it all. To be a star, you'll have to go down. Take it off, no need to talk. You're crazy, but I like the way you f*** me.
My neck, my back, lick my p*** and my crack. My neck, my back, lick my p*** and my crack. My neck, my back, lick my p*** and my crack.
Alright. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to the Vanguard. Poor Spike just introduced me to a song that I had to share with like 9 different people. Cohen, I am Matt Wright, and together we are traversing the muddied waters of freedom.
Hey, everybody.
Dude, what? What's that?
Oh my God, that may have been the greatest opening song we've ever done.
I have a few more
First,
after that.
oh, good. First, first and foremost, allow me to thank Stateside Kava for the kava that I drink on this and every episode of the Muddied Waters of Freedom.
And allow me to thank Canada. Can you see that? Canada? Canada for my water.
Yeah. Bulavanaka.
Real Canada, Bulavanaka.
So, fun story. I know Buck Cherry.
Oh, really?
I do. Yeah, years ago, like I got a buddy. He's a road manager for a bunch of different bands, and one year he was the road manager for Buck Cherry. And when he told me that, I said, "Why?" And he said, "They pay." And I said, "Well, that's a good reason."
That is a compelling reason to.
It's a compelling reason to do anything. That's why I worked for Democrats and Republicans because they pay.
Because they pay you, yeah.
Right. So he was like, so he calls me one time and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town for Earth Day Birthday, which is an event here in Orlando to celebrate Earth Day. And at Earth Day, what they do is they pretty much litter this huge lawn and they give helicopter rides, not that kind of helicopter rides that most of our listeners are probably thinking of, but like helicopter rides around this like lake. For
Earth Day.
For Earth Day. Like it is the most non-green Earth Day ever. And I think Five Finger Death Punch was the like headliner.
Okay.
And like, I don't like rock that screams at me. Like I don't like it. I'm not a fan. But I wanted to see my buddy, so I went. And Rise Against was playing, and Buck Cherry was playing, and so I ended up hanging out with him, and I ended up meeting all of the guys from Buck Cherry, and I think most of them in that band are like 11 years or more sober. And at this point, I was like a year and a half in. So I ended up talking to a couple of them about it. Like I was on stage for part of it. I was like off to the side. And, I'd moved down here from Nashville. And so, it was during hockey season. So it was during the playoffs. And the Chicago Blackhawks were playing the Nashville Predators that night. And the guitarist, Steve, he's a huge Blackhawks fan. So he's in the middle of the guitar solo on Crazy Bitch. And he's like running around the stage. And he runs over to where I'm standing. And he just looks at me and he goes, "Go Hawks." And he turns around and he sprints back in the other direction. And I was just
That's funny.
That's the best trash talk I've ever gotten right there. I got nothing to say back.
Because you can't run out and be like, "No, screw the Hawks."
Go Preds.
That's funny. That is funny. Well, hopefully you've now gotten back at them with this song.
Yeah. So, right. So later I was on their tour bus, and the bassist, he wasn't the original bassist. He was the old bassist for a ska band, Goldfinger. And when I was in high school, when I heard about Goldfinger when I was in high school,
Just I tried.
Later, much later than when Goldfinger was out. Like I really loved their first album that came out, and he came on the bus, and I like went up to him. I was like, and I didn't want to say it too loud because I hadn't complimented anybody in Buck Cherry for their music at all. And like he kind of walked by, I was like, "Hey man, I really love that Goldfinger. I really love Goldfinger." And he was like, "Thanks, I understand." I was like, "Cool."
Everyone is with Buck Cherry because they get paid.
Right.
The lead singer, all from the manager down to the janitor, everyone is involved with Buck Cherry because they're paid to be involved. Buck Cherry is an entirely commercial venture.
Right.
Unlike that Super Mix, which was a work of love.
that work of art that we opened the show with.
Oh, by the way, guys, before we get started, thank you to everyone who tuned in to what is apparently one of our highest rated shows
Ever.
I
think it's our second.
Where is it? Oh,
I don't know.
I must have deleted it. Anyway, imagine that the Demageddon picture is there and I go, Demageddon! Because that's what I was referring to.
I think that was our second highest rated show ever.
Yeah, it was really good. For those who didn't tune in, be sure to check it out. Look up Demageddon on our page. We live streamed the Democratic, the debate that mattered between the people that actually have a shot of winning it. Watch Harris get Harris get the nomination that way. Yeah.
So I mean, Warren's taken a jump in the polls, and she was before this debate. So like this was kind of a continuation. Harris, which she jumps. So I think I think that she is jumping in the eyes of white millennials.
I guess so. So Matt and I were under the impression after watching it that Biden did well in the debate. I said won the debate, but at the very least he held his own. We are apparently the only two human beings on Earth who had that impression.
Yeah, I rewatched that debate today to find out why everybody felt that way, and I still think he at bare minimum held his own. And everybody's like, "Oh, he did awful." I'm like, they all did awful.
Oh yeah, they were all. Yeah, they were all terrible. I mean, listen, I think personally, that this is an example of hot take media. So I think very few of the people actually watched the entire debate, and instead they watched the clips that they were fed by media. And the woke media, the woke corporate media, has that just recently removed all their rainbow flags because it's not June anymore. They're determined to get rid of Biden, who is apparently now the second coming of George Wallace or something. And no, I guess he's the third coming. Trump was the second coming. And
right.
And Harris is going to save us all. But it's interesting because this is a bait and switch. Kamala Harris has locked up more black men than any other woman on earth. And I think only Bill Clinton locked up more than her. She has a really, really, really bad history of locking up lots and lots of people. We shared an article on the page about how, we talk about separating families. She separated thousands of families on like truancy rules. So if the kids were skipping school, and there were times where the kids weren't skipping school, they had medical notes, but it got messed up in the paperwork. So the parents went to jail and the kids went into foster care. And in some cases it took weeks to clear it up. So I mean, we're talking about, separating families, but she's a black woman or a multi-ethnic woman, whatever, part black woman. And so, and Biden's not. Biden's an old white man. So he's got to be the whipping boy or the scapegoat for their new, woke leader, Kamala Harris, who is every bit as problematic as he is, if not more so. So it's very interesting to watch. But yeah, that's the pub. Go ahead.
What I did see is, and I find this kind of interesting, is that okay? So the Democratic Party has basically adopted Bernie Sanders' talking points.
Oh yeah,
like all of them.
Yeah. And
after this debate, Bernie Sanders fell something like 12 points, or I don't have the numbers in front of me.
Right.
But he fell by a wide margin. Right now, Harris and Biden are basically tied at number one and number one and number two. And then Bernie fell somewhere between 8 and 12 points. I can't remember what it is. And he's down below Elizabeth Warren, below Beta. Like he's down there. And everybody has stolen your talking points, but because of the way that you talk in 3-word parts of sentences while having hand seizures, talking angrily about Wall Street, means that you're not going to speak to the younger class. Like you're 78 years old and you're a millionaire and you're talking to everybody about the top 2%. Like you're not really, you no longer speak to who you're trying to speak to.
Right. And he's not needed anymore. Like he was the only one that was a socialist in the last election cycle, or the only prominent name that was a socialist in the last election cycle. Well, now everyone's a freaking socialist,
right now,
except for John Hickenlooper, who's trying to Hickenlooper is trying to single-handedly save the Democratic Party from calling themselves socialist while still continuing to push mildly socialist legislation, but I mean, so is the Republican Party. He's trying to do what the Republicans do: say socialism's bad, while they continue to creep socialism upon us. But yeah, no, I mean, he's not needed anymore. There are younger, more dynamic, better talkers now who are going to be all just as socialisty as he is, and so he's not needed anymore. And it's you know, I'd feel bad for him if he hadn't spent his entire life robbing people and you know, or his entire adult life anyway, robbing people and soft selling communism on the you know, the gray masses. But I mean, it kind of, I imagine it sucks for him that he's been building this up and building it up and building it up, and now here comes like Kamala Harris, who's a cop, like literally a cop, to come in and go, yeah, me too, yeah, no, me, all of that, all the things he said, me too.
Plus, let me add in these other things.
Yeah, I'm black. Like, I mean, that's
and female.
And I'm a black female, and I'm younger. I'm not young, but I'm younger. And you know, when Howdy Doody up there kept trying to, you know, say, you know, give us the torch, and Eric Swalwell, and watching Bernie go, well, it's not about age, it's about standing strong, and it's like, no, it's about optics, and you're an old man, and your hair situation is.
I will say he did comb his hair for the debate.
Yeah, but it does this like natural static electricity, like returns to its form as by the end of the debate, it's back to the you know, Doc from Back to the Future side comb thing he's doing there. And you know, it is what it is. And you know, Biden was like, yeah, I'm keeping the torch. Like he's listen, I'm the old people's candidate, and I'm going to run on that. And Bernie's not the old people's candidate. He's the young people's candidate. And the young people are like, these other ones look better. And he's kind of screwed now. Yeah,
and you're seeing like everybody's like, yeah, Bernie train. Then the ones that watch the debate anyway, they're like, well, yeah, but now everybody's saying this, and that mayor,
everyone,
yeah, and the mayor from South Bend, you know, he's gay, so he kind of got Bernie beat.
He's I mean, peel apart all of his, you know, rhetoric and everything else. He's an old, straight, cishet white male. The only thing he isn't is Christian. That's like, if he were a Christian, he'd be Joe Biden. Like he's you know, if he doesn't bring anything identity-wise to the table. He's an old school leftist, and old school leftists actually don't like identity politics. They think that it waters down the message, which they're right. But like old school socialists and communists don't like this intersectional identity politics crap. But they're not in charge anymore. The new left loves that stuff because it works politically, and it works politically. They can use it to you know, browbeat the majority population into feeling bad, and energize the minority populations that they need to win in elections, and keep everyone at each other's throat over things that shouldn't matter. They matter to people, but they shouldn't. So yeah, it's sad for Bernie. But yeah, so
I would say it's sad for Bernie, but not the rest of America. And then I'm like, well, if one of the other ones wins, it's still sad.
I mean, listen, I mean, guys, if you want to get depressed, keep listening, because I wouldn't even say our best chance. If they don't win, the guy who's trying to build a wall while, you know, adding child, you know, universal child care, and, you know, banning every gun accessory he discovers exists and doesn't like because he just found out about it, is the guy who will win. So, I mean,
that's a thing. Let's get rid of it.
Man, that sounds terrible. You can make a gun be less shooty sounding? Oh, no. Let's get rid of that.
Can't have that.
You know, so I mean, and he's, I was talking with a conservative friend by text message, and he's like, "Hey man, how excited are you that Trump hasn't been hasn't been going to war in Iran?" And I'm like, I mean, it's great, wonderful, but he also has been, and I started like listing off all this stuff. I'm like, he hasn't been going to war with Iran. He hasn't gone to war with Iran, but he's supplying the Saudis to, conduct their horrific war in Yemen. He's continuing the war in Afghanistan. He's possibly ramping up Iraq. He's, there's still some activity happening in Syria. Like, he's, with the exception of Tulsi Gabbard, who it's great to sound anti-war until you're actually the president, because Donald Trump sounded a lot more anti-war than he has been. So with the exception of her in rhetoric, he is the most war-averse president of the major parties. And
right.
If that doesn't scare you, boo! Did that scare you?
It's like the Bernie gif.
Oh yeah. I've been told that I am the young bearded anarchist Bernie Sanders, and I had no rejoinder to that, because that might be true. Yeah.
You're less, like, I know you're equally Jewish, but you're less Jewish.
In some ways.
I mean,
in others,
you're not from New York.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. Other than that, I got nothing.
I'm not from New York.
Yeah. Oh.
I was raised in the South and sound like this. So
right.
There's a lot to that theory. So speaking of odd identity combinations, so in Portland, there was a protest. I'm trying. So there was a Antifa protest in Portland. Do you know what they were protesting, or was it just sort of a?
No, I kind of forgot to do the notes on that one because I added it after I did the rest of them.
And during this protest, they beat up a guy named Andy.
No.
Is it no? It's spelled NGO. He's
I think it's no. Like
no.
Yeah.
Andy NGO, who is a gay, I guess, right-leaning Asian journalist.
Yes.
And I don't know a lot about him. I know some people were saying he's kind of trying to be like
Milo.
The Asian Milo or Myro. I'm sorry. Let's just start this show over.
Matt, why is it that people think that you guys are racist? I don't know. I have no idea.
We're against rape. Let's just go ahead and knock that out. We're against rape, and I'm an anarchist. 36 minutes, 54 seconds.
Took you a while.
So I know this was a longer one. I said it earlier, but the anarchist Bernie Sanders. Yeah, no, it went right by me too. So they beat him up, and of course, the obvious response to this from the right has been, well, what if a conservative beat up a gay Asian journalist? Which is a good question, because that would be, if there were a Trump rally.
Front page news.
Yeah. If there were a Trump rally.
8 o'clock lead on every major media network.
If at the straight pride parade, which there is no such thing because all parades are gay, but if at the straight pride parade, they beat up a gay Asian journalist, that's all you'd hear about for 3 days, 2 days, 3 days.
I'm saying a full week, because so he's in the hospital. He's got internal bleeding. So you would be getting constant updates. You would know everything going on with him. Everybody that had anything to do with the with his attack, you would, their faces would be plastered everywhere, on every major media network. And whoever is the leader of that protest would have to come out, or like, you know, the leader of the gay. So Milo, I think Milo is the leader of the straight pride parade, which is odd.
Proving my point.
Right. So Milo would have to come out and be like, no, we condone these actions by these few that were at this event. Like, but no, none of that's happening with Mr. Nyo. And so yeah, just it's a Antifa bad, white supremacists bad.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, there's not really a lot of places to go with this other than these are like so when you have two people that you really hate and they're beating each other up and you're like good. And that's my thought on that. I don't know enough about Andy Ngo to tell you if he's a you know, a bad guy or not, but I don't know what to tell you. I doubt he's a white supremacist. You rarely meet gay Asian white supremacists. But
not often.
But it's a brave new world, so who knows?
It's 2019. You can be anything you want.
It's 2019. You can be anything you want. You can be the best gay Asian Nazi that you possibly can. You get out there and get them. And we're proud of you. Actually, we don't have to be proud of you anymore. It's not June.
Yeah, it's July. It's totally
July,
different.
so we're not even proud of you anymore. Yeah, we're not proud of you.
Now we're on.
Yeah, now we're in July. Right back to heterosexuality awareness weekend.
Right. Well, you know, after Pride comes Wrath, so.
Wrath Month? This is Wrath Month. Welcome to Wrath Month, everyone.
It's Wrath Month. And if you live here in Florida, you know exactly what that means.
I love it.
Mike's up there in the
land of wrath. Yeah.
Right. So he's not experiencing the southern wrath of July.
No, it's pretty hot up here, but it's not
Is
back
it
home
is it hot in Canada right now?
It's like 80.
Wow.
That's hot for Canada.
I'm certain that's hot for Canada.
These people are losing their minds, especially because a lot of the houses here don't have AC because it's hot 1 month out of the year.
It's 80. What 80. Do you need AC for?
What do you need AC for 80?
Man, open up the windows. Get a nice.
You got to get it down to 75. So,
man, apparently that's what happens in South Carolina. Because here in Florida, 80 is like, yeah, let's open up these windows.
Yeah, well, that's I mean,
means is at 80.
Yes, and we know all about the Florida people. So and what that level of exposure to humidity causes. But yeah, so it's Canada hot here, which means it's not hot. Like I had to put on jeans last night because it was in the 60s. Yeah, we're near the Arctic. It's light till like 10, and then it's light again at like 3:30. Like we're close to the pole, the North Pole, I think. Mm-hmm. That's North Pole, right? Yeah. I mean,
yeah. I mean, if the Earth is actually a globe, yeah.
Santa has a Canadian postal code. So, and they don't call it a zip code. It's a postal
That's like,
code.
yeah, so that's like when I was in Alaska last year. Like the sun would set at like 11 and get up. And it wouldn't get up. It would come back.
Yeah, it would like kind of dip down and then come back up. Here it's like, we're not that far north, but it's like 3 hours, 4 hours, it's completely gone. And then it's already starting to come up again.
That's what I was like where I was in Canada or in Alaska. I'm still not allowed in Canada.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I have like 1 more year left before I'm allowed to go to Canada.
You could have seen me yesterday. We went into Niagara Falls briefly to do some stuff. So we could have hung out. And you know what they have in Niagara Falls is buses. Speaking of buses.
Wow.
I was waiting for something to say, and I had nothing. So speaking of buses, Matt, it appears that the guy that Barack Obama picked to be his vice president, he's He's basically a Klan member.
Yeah, that's what the media is painting creepy Uncle Joe as recently is a bit of a Klan member. But oddly, they would be wrong.
Would they?
They would.
Tell us all about that right now.
Yeah, no problem. So, okay, so everybody's like, okay, yeah, he wanted to pass anti-busing legislation, which granted a lot of segregationists they supported anti-busing legislation, but he supported it as well.
Right.
Now, to understand all of this, I want you to understand that most of my weekend went away because I had to make sure I had all of the facts on this before I made some sort of rational decision. And so first you have to know what busing is. Busing was forced integrations of schools after the Brown versus Board of Education in a ruling by the Supreme Court that is the Swan versus Charlotte Mecklenburg Board of Education case.
Right.
Students were then, in order to force integration, because areas were kind of segregated already, they were forcing integration. So students were bused from their regular schools into different districts in order to do this.
Okay.
Now, the reason that we got there was because of everybody's favorite socialist president, FDR. So FDR is the reason that segregation in 50 states got to be as prevalent as it had been at that point.
Okay.
1933, he passed the Homeowners Loan Corporation in order to help homeowners that were dealing with losing their homes because of the Great Depression, try to make sure that home ownership would stay up. So he passed the Homeowners Loan Corporation.
Okay.
What they would do, segue of the year.
It was not one of my prouder moments, but I was floundering.
Yeah. So what they would do is they rated all houses in neighborhoods and they marked them as A was green, B was blue, C was yellow, D was red. A neighborhood was suburban with recent construction, low crime, business and professional people, also known as a white neighborhood.
Right.
A D neighborhood was inner city, old buildings, often in need of repair, sometimes high crime, or a minority neighborhood.
Mm.
The HOLC avoided D neighborhoods. They wouldn't deal with. So lots of those people ended up losing their houses and whatever, losing their businesses and buildings and all that kind of stuff. Which then came the FHA.
Right.
And the FHA based all of their loans on the HOLC. The original, when FHA first came around, they always have a max loan that they will give out. I think the last year that I did real estate, it was $197,000. When it first started, $20,000 was the max.
How'd you like a $20,000 house, everyone?
Right. It precluded A neighborhoods. So they figured that anybody that was going to be living in an A neighborhood, one, didn't need federal help in buying it, and they already had the money. So they just left those out. So they were working with B and C neighborhoods.
Right.
Right. And they rarely gave these loans to blacks, and they came with a list of other restrictions. Oh man, the one that was highlighted went away. So the restrictions were allocation of definite areas for specific uses, such as single or two family houses, apartments, and business structures. The placement of buildings so they will have adequate light and air with assurance of a space of at least 10 feet between buildings. Prohibition of the re-subdivision of lots.
These are the most detailed notes of our show ever, by the way.
Ever. Prohibition of the erection of one or more dwelling per lot. So right now we're getting rid of everything in the inner cities. Nothing in the inner cities is available here. Control control of the design of all buildings by requiring their approval by qualified committee. So now the government's now in charge of how these things are being built.
Right,
and by
right.
appropriate cost limitations or minimum square foot ground floor areas. So they can't be small dwellings. They're going to have to be X amount of square feet. They're going to have these kind of rules. They're going to have to meet the FHA qualification. Prohibitions of nuisances or undesirable buildings such as stables, pig pens, temporary dwellings, and high fences.
So no rural housing. Yeah.
No rural housing. Prohibition of the occupancy of properties except by the race for which they are intended.
Oh, wow.
Prohibition of, I'm going to read it again, a prohibition of the occupancy of properties except by the race for which they are intended. This was in the government FHA loan qualifications of 1933, 34, 35. So this is how they started forcing redlining on people. They were only giving these loans to specific people. They were only allowing them they were automatically now separating them. They were making it impossible for black people to get these loans. And then they were making it impossible for black people to get these loans in the areas where black people had been living. You couldn't purchase anything anyway with the help of government, with the help of a government loan. Most of the time, at the time, if you wanted a conventional loan, you needed a 50% down payment and you had to pay the loan back in 6 to 7 years. You were not able to have a 20, 30, 40, 50-year loan.
Right. Yeah, it was totally different back then.
Right. So
and this wasn't redlining as in, private mortgage companies saying, I don't think I want to do business there. This was the government enforcing, like, you can't get a loan if you live here.
But this was also the birth of redlining.
Right.
Where you don't want to live in this area here.
Right. You can't live in that area there. Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, nowadays redlining is if you tell somebody you don't want to live in this area.
Right.
That is illegal. You cannot say that.
Well, you can say that as the person buying, but the agent can't help you with that.
Right. Exactly.
The agent can't help you find a white neighborhood or a black neighborhood. They can tell you you can look yourself, and if that's important to you, you can make whatever criteria you want. But the agent can't help you knowingly, find something racial based.
Right. So now going back to Brown versus Board of Education, segregation has to be ended. Good. That's great. As it was a good step for our country to take, and it was a much needed step.
Right.
But the reason that most of the schools were segregated weren't because it was illegal for blacks and whites to go to school together. Many of them were because of how the neighborhoods were spread out.
Right.
That was just the actual demographic.
It was de facto segregation. Like you weren't going to live you weren't going to go to a school in the next town or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So that is when busing came into effect.
Okay.
Students from lower income areas were then bused to higher income neighborhoods to go to school there. So they had to wake up earlier. They got home later. It was making it harder for them to succeed in school.
Oh, wow.
The parents of the black children who were being bused were getting upset because they were not being given the tools to do this. At the same time, the schools that the students were being bused to were now getting more federal dollars, which was taking money away from the schools that they used to be going to, which was making those schools worse.
Worse than they already were.
So then they started losing money because they weren't having as many students there. More money was going to the other schools that they were busing to. The kids that were going to these schools weren't performing as well because the travel time to and from school, less hours of sleep, less time to do homework, all that was taking up so much time that they didn't have the proper tools in order to learn what they needed to learn.
Right.
Most of the people that were upset by this were in the black community. Biden said busing for schools to achieve racial quotas and did not achieve equal opportunity for students. And he was right. And he was right about that. That is what was happening with busing. So
that is very interesting.
Anti-busing legislation that now, because nobody knows what it is and nobody knows how we got there and nobody understands any of that,
right,
except for all of you who are listening and watching right now. That is why supporting anti-busing legislation is not wrong, and is in fact the right thing to have done at the time.
That's very interesting. I had no, so my, and of course, like it says in the note, so Kamala Harris, her parents were PhDs. She wasn't low income. So whatever busing was being done, she wasn't being bussed from far away. She was being bussed from probably the same neighborhood. And then apparently there's some disagreement as to whether she was the second class to be bussed in, but I don't know all the details on that. But so this was not like school choice where, you know, if you have a student and you want them to go to a better school, this was where the government came in and said, we don't care if you like it or not. Your kid's getting on this bus at like 4 a.m. or, you know, 4:30 in the morning and, you know, to go to a mostly white school. And then, you know, we'll get, you know, they'll be back in time for, you know, after dinner, and then they'll have to do their homework before they go to bed to do it all over again 5 days a week.
Right.
And Biden and those who were against it said, no, that's not going to work. Now, again,
I'm certain that the people that were pro-segregation, those people were voting for it because they supported segregation, because they wanted it to be separate.
Right.
The people who joined them in it, who weren't for segregation, did it, I would think. I mean, I wasn't there. I don't know. But because of like what Biden said, busing for schools to achieve racial quotas and did not achieve equal opportunity for students, he was actually looking for equal opportunity. I'm defending Biden, and
that's the thing.
It makes me feel so dirty.
Right.
The government decided that, okay, it's now illegal to segregate. You can't have segregated schools anymore. So it's like, okay, great. But the schools didn't like integrate because of rules that the government had made, because the government had already segregated America. They said, okay, well, now what do? Okay, we're going to force kids to go to other schools, and we're going to start busing kids from low-income areas to the nicer areas in order to force integration. So that way that we'll start doing intermingling of racing, and everything will be hunky-dory, and we'll all learn to love each other. Marianne Williamson will get a lady boner. And it didn't work. It didn't work.
Well, we don't know if Marianne Williamson got a lady boner or not, but she probably did, actually.
Right, that probably did happen. But
the rest of it did not happen.
The rest of it didn't work.
So that's what, and again, we're not here to defend Biden. I love, Chris Reynolds said, Biden should have definitely used Matt's 10-minute real estate lecture in the debate. I agree. And just kept talking and not let anyone else talk, and who would have stopped him?
He shouldn't have ceded his time.
Yeah, when he ceded his time, he should have just kept going.
His ear.
Yeah, and just like literally even given all of the where it had like A, B, C, D, and all of that, like literally list out the whole thing and refuse to stop talking, continue talking through the commercial break, and it would have worked. Who could have said he lost it then? So we're not Biden fans here. Like, we're not fans of any of these people, but
yeah,
obviously, but
I'm defending Biden and I feel disgusted.
I know, exactly. Like, we're defending Uncle Touchy, the, tough one. There are things to criticize Uncle Touchy about, but there are things that you'd also have to criticize Harris about. So they can't talk about that. They can't really get into Biden's tough on crime stuff that led to record numbers of people, most of whom were people of color, being locked up, because Harris was a part of that too. She was at the spear's edge of that stuff. So they have to talk about this, he once said something nice to a segregationist. He was a Democrat in the Senate. He was trying to get legislation passed. What was he supposed to do? Obama gave good words about Robert Byrd, who was literally a former Klansman. I mean, you could do this all day long. All the great things people said about Strom Thurmond and Jesse
Smollett.
Jesse Smollett. Yes, exactly. No, Jesse Helms. They were in the Senate together and they were trying to get stuff passed. So of course you'd say nice things to them, but that's the stuff they're going to lean on, and that will work with the fake woke internet crowd and fake woke media that, we can't vote for him. Now here's a guy again. We're not a fan of Obama either. This was Obama's former vice president. Remember all the memes about Obama and Biden? And now they've turned on him so hard on things that are 50 and 40 and 60 and 30 years old that they knew about back then.
Right.
But now they have to get rid of him because he has to be the sacrificial lamb for the ascendancy of Kamala Harris, otherwise known as the black female Joe Biden. And that's where we are. But have no fear, everyone, because there's someone on the horizon.
She is like a beacon of love and hope.
Her chakras are perfectly aligned. See that? Perfect chakra alignment. She's doing such good work that Republicans are donating to her campaign. We're speaking, of course, of Marianne Williamson. Aligned chakras.
When she talks about the spirituality of the self and the yoga and the centering of one's soul and center, she is talking to all of us as one, because we are but one human race. And none of us are different, because we all come from the dust of stars. And
we were all made of stars.
That makes us special.
Nothing can stop us now.
Oh, Marianne Williamson.
Marianne Williamson. So people are so happy to have her in the debate, and Republicans are so happy to potentially frustrate everyone else trying to actually debate and become president, that they've started donating to her campaign in order for her to be able to keep whatever minimum donor levels are required to stay in the debate. And I welcome it because
I like chaos.
What's that?
I like chaos.
I like chaos. I like the fact that she somehow made it past security. I love beating hate with love. I love decalcifying my pineal gland, third eye. I like kale. I actually don't mind kale. I
wasn't sure when the joke stopped and started with that bit with you.
This is not a joke at all. Marianne Williamson is the golden flaxseed smoothie that America needs.
Yeah,
none of this is a joke.
She is what America needs to have in the debates right now.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There is a meme that was going around, and it is so far my favorite political meme I've ever seen. And the only people that understand it are people who know the show Twin Peaks. But during Marianne Williamson's speech, where she was like, Donald Trump has crippled this country with fear and I will beat him with love, and she sounds like she's a soap opera actress. Somebody put the Twin Peaks theme song over that, and it is so perfect. It is the most perfect metaphor for what she is. Is straight out of a David Lynch movie, and it is awesome. And I hope that every time she speaks for the rest of her campaign, somebody does that, because I will watch all of them.
That is so funny. Yeah, no, I when I saw her, I'm like, who the hell is it? 'Cause I hadn't heard of her. I had no idea who she was. But then I'm like, oh, this is great. And she grew on me. I might vote for her, at least in the primary. Because, yeah, I like chaos. I want her there. I want it to be down to her and Harris. Or Biden or whomever. I want it to be down to her and whoever the one who ends up getting it is. And I want to have a series of debates
with just her.
With just her and whoever will actually end up getting the nomination. Because why would she drop out? There's no reason for her to drop out.
No, she's going to sell more books doing this than she has doing anything else.
She has no political future, so she's not worried about pissing the party off or whatever. She could stay in this through Super Tuesday and literally just like, you have a debate where one person is trying to explain why they should be president of the United States. And Marianne is over here like telling us about how we should speak into. So she tweeted once, she said, imagine the leak, the BP oil spill leak, like stopping. We all need to just picture it and it will happen. That needs to be on a campaign sticker. And then when she, and then what I really want is for her to get the nomination. I remember watching the same Republican Party that was horrified at Donald Trump. The Republican Party establishment was horrified at Donald Trump. Constitutional conservatives were horrified at Donald Trump. And then when he got the nomination, they all had to be like, help us make America great again and lock up crooked Hillary. Like, they had to take the message because it was theirs now. He was the nominee, right, and they had to take it. I want that to happen for the Democrat Party with Marianne Williamson, where like it all becomes about like Kundalini fragrances and like chakras, and they start selling like sage, the sage things that you burn, and like they have to open the meeting with the burning of the sage and like telling the blessings to keep the demons out. Like this is a real. If you're a Republican, just throw a couple bucks at this. You don't have to throw all your money at this, but throw like a couple bucks at it. If every Republican threw like $2 at this,
$2 to $10 at this,
she'd become the nominee.
She could.
She could become the nominee because there is no one like her in this. If you're looking for a socialist, there's a bunch of them. If you're looking for, some like, media favorite, there's Harris, there used to be Biden, there's Booker and people like that. Like it can be split up some way. There's only one person telling you how you can like fix the astral trauma in your spirit. No one's addressing that.
So
no one's addressing the real questions here.
Have you thought about like what first day legislation she would like try to enact? Vaccination's gone. We're going.
Vaccination is illegal. Vaccination would be
straight
illegal.
Essential oils.
Yeah.
Like don't worry. Some lavender and I don't use enough essential. Some lavender and basil will clear up that cancer right now. Don't you worry about it. Oh, don't worry. Here's some CBD and some, CBD has medical. But yeah, here's some CBD and some ashwagandha, and that'll clear up that AIDS. Don't you worry about that.
Universal Himalayan salt caves for all.
Right. The national anthem will only be sung in Himalayan monk voices now.
Oh, or that Mongolian.
Yeah, the Mongolian throat singing. Yeah.
Throat. That's so. I mean, I'm actually hopeful now for the future of America if she wins, because I think that this would be much better. You can't go to war if everyone hasn't been vaccinated, because that's actually the law. So, right there, war's gone because no one has protection for malaria.
I would love to see the first diplomatic trip she goes on where she's talking with a Saudi prince who just murdered somebody. I just really feel as though we need to come into these meetings with love and equal respect for each other. And he's like, I don't talk to women. I don't know what you want me to say here.
It's gonna be tough. You're gonna have to talk to her. You're gonna have to talk to her, and you're gonna have to like meditate with her.
Right.
If you want that money, you're gonna have to meditate with her.
Yeah, and Chris Reynolds is right. She is the star of the debate because at the beginning of the debate, nobody knew who she was. And now we've just spent 10 minutes talking about her.
She's the star of. She was the star of Demageddon, I'll tell you that much.
Definitely the star.
We thought Biden won it, but she was definitely the star. And guys, if you want to be a star, let me tell you how. Go to Anchor. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. That's a way to be a star, I'm told. Anchor gives you everything you need. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I was like, I don't know if that's my turn yet. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer.
That is incredible. You know, they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast, so it sounds great.
They'll also distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, and many more.
That's incredible. And you can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership.
No minimum listenership.
Low minimum listenership.
So after the show, head on over to download the old Anchor app or go to anchor.fm and get started today.
And another cool thing they have, which we're about to do, is you can actually get voice messages from your
listenership.
From your
no minimum listenership.
From your no minimum listenership. How far back does this go? Wait.
Yeah, we got a couple from him.
Oh man, because the last show was on the 25th. Oh, he was sending them during Demageddon. Oh man, so we have
we've got a couple to hit here. As always, personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds has quite a few. I would just go with the top, the ones from yesterday and today.
Okay, yeah, because okay, so I'm just gonna do these in chronological order. So here's our first message from Chris Reynolds, attorney at law. If you're looking for an attorney, personal injury attorney in Florida, hit up Chris Reynolds.
Personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds here with the Kamala Harris hot minute, I guess. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Sure.
So after we've had a few days to digest the first debate, wanted to see if the guys had any thoughts about whether or not their opinions have changed from their initial reactions to the debate, who did well, who did not do well, and also, does it really matter what's going on now when we've got whatever it is, 16, 18 months until the actual election? Historically, I believe how you're doing right now doesn't have a huge correlation about how you're going to be doing 12 months from now. So anyways, any thoughts on that would be great. Thanks.
So we kind of covered the first part of that.
Right.
Marianne Williamson will be president in 2020.
Yes. Right.
And
none of these other people matter.
Nobody else matters. But yes, he's correct. What is happening right now doesn't matter. I believe at this point last year in the 2016 cycle, Jeb Bush had 22%. Donald Trump had 1%. We don't need to know anything else.
Yeah.
None of that really matters. Like, whatever the polls say now, there's plenty of time for a please clap moment, and they'll just dwindle. You're going to get your Howard Dean in there. And
there's so much that can happen. Yeah.
There's so much that's going to happen. So yeah, right now, no, it doesn't matter. I think that the first primary this year is in December, which is why things are getting kicked off a little bit earlier than they normally do.
That's Iowa, right?
No, I think so. I think it's New York now.
Oh, wow.
I think New York wanted to be first at something.
Okay, well, other than taxes. Yeah, so I don't think it matters all that much, other than I think what matters here is that they're already tearing down Biden. And he's the kind of candidate that I think if he falls far behind, I don't see him having much of a comeback moment. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see him having this big comeback moment where, he's gonna take over. But I don't know. I still thought he did well in the debate. I thought he did what he needed to do, but I think the far left definitely doesn't want him. I'm not sure they want. Go ahead.
I will say that the moment that you and I got super excited about him doing when I was a public defender,
right.
I wasn't a prosecutor. I have not seen that in a clip anywhere on the news. Nobody has shown it that I have seen.
Yeah, no one's shown it because it would completely blow it apart. And again, it goes to my theory that most people didn't watch the debate. They watched highlights when she said, "I was bust and that little girl was me," and he looks at her and they went, "Oh, Harris won the debate." And that's not the entirety of the debate. I think for someone who watched the debate, it was way more nuanced than that. But I don't know what to tell you. So we still think the same thing. Everyone else is wrong but us.
Except for Marianne Williamson is the star of that debate.
Personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds here with your Marianne Williamson moment of zen. Wanted to see, and I'm sure the guys are going to talk about this anyways, but what you all thought about Donald Trump's kind of, I don't know, his trip of love going around the world, swinging by old North Korea to have a chat with Kim Jong-un, all the controversy surrounding his daughter, hanging out with all the world leaders, the pretty sweet side-eye by somebody, I forget who it was. Gosh, I forget, but one of the women, as she was trying to butt into some conversations, looked pretty disgusted that the daughter was there, Ivanka, and just the thoughts about the trip overall. Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
I'm looking up the side eye because I have no idea what that was.
So Ivanka was at the G20 and she was inserting she was being very Trumpian. You know, I mean, she's a Trump. So she was inserting herself in the conversations and somebody was giving her the side eye of it was the diplomatic equivalent of her going, "Why is this bitch even here?"
Oh, it's Christine Lagarde, who is the managing director and chairwoman of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. That would be someone who would wonder why you're here.
Right.
Like, why are
and
you
so
here?
she was there and she was doing her thing. And we're going to get to North Korea in a little bit. We're going to get to North Korea in a little bit, but the rest of it, like, he went to China, he had his meetings. I think we're still in a trade war. I don't know. Like,
I think he's talking about backing off on new tariffs and backing off and maybe letting Huawei, however you say that, the Chinese the Chinese phone maker Huawei, allowing government contractors to buy Huawei's again. So, I mean, listen, anytime that politicians are trading words, they're not trading bombs. So that's a good thing. Him crossing the... What's that?
It's almost a direct quote from Bernie Sanders this week.
I had no rejoinder to that theory again. But it's good. It's a good thing. I need to start doing this when I talk. I actually I do that occasionally. So
it's only one finger because he's like shaming you.
So it was. I don't have. I think it's. I like trip of love. I'm glad he's not bombing them. My bar is low for politicians. I'm glad he's not bombing them.
Right.
So that's my take on that.
Yeah, that's all you got on that one.
Yeah, that's really all I have. I like this one. Oh, wait. Here we go.
Personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds here with your AOC Millennial Minute.
Attorney at law.
As you guys know, the Constitution gives the executive branch the bulk of its powers in terms of what it does with other countries. And so with the president currently on his trip around the world, G20, meeting with the Saudi prince who just murdered somebody recently, meeting with Kim Jong-un, meeting with Putin, and joking about election meddling, all the different things that are going on right now. This is the area where Donald Trump has most of his power. And I would just love to hear you guys' view on, how you think he's doing, what, effects all of these things that he's doing may or may not have. Thank you.
I don't. Go ahead.
I mean, do I think that we're having any effect? No,
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't.
Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, personal injury attorney, Chris Reynolds, attorney at law, is one of the most well-informed people I know. And I don't agree with him on everything. Like I don't agree with personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds, attorney at law,
I do.
on everything. I bet you don't. Um,
Bet I don't say it.
Yeah, I bet I can name some things. But he's going to be in like the top 1% of people informed on everything going on.
Right.
Spike and I are in the top 90%. Most of the country's in the bottom 20. Most of them don't even know that Trump left. They just know that he showed up at some point. They just know he showed up at some point in North Korea and walked into North Korea.
If that, like, I mean, the average voter, and this is, a condemnation on democracy. The average voter doesn't know what the hell is going on, which is why I still wonder if all this like polling with the debates and stuff, if it's even factoring in. The average voter is going to show up and go, and then go back to their life because they don't know. And by the way, was pressing a button. Like they literally just aren't like, they're going to go, and no one knows what that means. They're going to.
Didn't have the motion of pushing a button.
No, but some of them might just do that. Some of them might just go in there and grunt and walk away. Like that's.
I have been in voting places on election day. That's actually accurate.
And do you hear people? I
got to pick between these people.
It's like a Wookiee convention.
Right.
So I mean, that's I don't know if all of this stuff is really factoring in. We're gonna find out soon enough, but I don't
think it does.
I don't think it does. I really don't. At least not as much as we might think it does. Like as much as it does to us. And it's funny because it doesn't to us either because we're not voting. But I'm gonna
vote. I'm gonna like. I'm not. So I understand the reasons not to vote, and I understand that makes absolutely no difference, especially because I don't vote for a major party.
Right.
I literally throw in a vote just for chaos.
I would like to. I'll probably vote for Marianne Williamson in the primary if she's still in it, because you have to. But I was gonna vote for Hillary in the primary, and at this point, I don't think she's running. We can pretty safely say she's not running. I think she'd get suicide.
You never know. Of the 24 people running, 22 of them may end up dead next week, and she's going to come and be like, "Well, I'm here to save the day.
I'm here because these people keep committing suicide, and so here I am. Vote for me again." But like in the general, if I might vote for like Kim Ruff or something like that. I think I probably do that. If the Libertarian
on my show on the 11th,
I'm looking forward to that. If the Libertarian Party pulls another Gary Johnson, I'm not that big of a detractor of Gary Johnson, but no, if they pull another Gary Johnson, then I'll probably like go and I'll get a what's it called? So I showed up in 2016 with a bunch of crayons I had just bought at the dollar store, and I wanted to draw pictures of my dogs and Harambe, and they told me I couldn't because they didn't have paper ballots, and it's against the law to draw on the machines. So I'm gonna request a paper ballot, and then and do that, or Kim Ruff,
right?
Or Kim Ruff. Let's see, what's the next one?
The next one is, if it's the one I think it is probably my favorite. Because it just proves Chris Reynolds.
Hey, Spike and Matt. First time, long time. Love the show. Wanted to see if you all would talk a little bit about some of the things that have been really weighing on my mind lately. Number one, Big Little Lies, Meryl Streep. Amazing or just super amazing. 2, Stranger Things. can it get any better from any of the previous seasons? And probably the most important, number 3, the recent season finale of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Khloe, the cheating from Tristan Thompson, the interview by Jordan. We now get to see in the inner workings. Is Khloe going to be able to get through this? Is she going to go off the deep end? I don't know. I need your guys' thoughts on this.
Keeping Up with the Kardashians is still on.
Okay, yeah, no, it is. I actually had some people at stateside Kava in Indian Shores, Florida, talking to me about it the other day, and I was like, "That's still a thing, huh? Weird." All right.
I remember catching like an episode of that back when Caitlyn Jenner was a man.
No.
Well, it was Bruce Jenner.
Oh yeah, Caitlyn. Yeah, you're right. I was thinking of one of the others.
No, Caitlyn.
Because they're
one of them was still a man.
Might just go in there.
Nothing. Don't worry about that. Don't
Okay.
worry about what's going on.
I don't watch. Do you know any of those shows, Matt?
So I don't know Pretty Little Lies. I do know Stranger Things. And Stranger Things season 1 is one of the best seasons of television I've ever seen in my entire life. Stranger Things season 2 was fantastic. Had one of the sweetest moments that I've seen in television, especially like for a Netflix show. It's super well produced. It's super well produced. It's super well written. Season 3, I've been looking forward to. I have not been able to wait for it, but I've unfortunately had to. If you can't really see it from this angle, but right there, that is a Stranger Things lithograph that I got for winning a Stranger Things costume.
Now get the camera right, Matt, since you had to move the camera.
God
nope.
Damn it.
Now everyone's screwed. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, you're welcome.
No, that's terrible. No, actually, it's
it's
not bad. No, you know what? Yeah.
No, sorry. Like, bam.
Sure.
It's a little high, but whatever.
It's a little high, but
damn
we're
it.
good.
All right, it's there.
That's good. That is good.
there.
That's actually better than before.
Oh, good. So Stranger Things is so yeah, Chris, I get it. I understand. I'm not even reading that comment out loud. So Stranger Things is most of the people only get 20% of the information. Most of the people only get 20% of the information.
Virtually everyone. Bottom 20.
Right. Yeah, pretty much everybody, bottom 20. So yeah, Stranger Things is I have high hopes for this season. I don't know how long they're going to be able to do it because the kids are getting older and eventually you're not going to believe that a bunch of 24-year-olds are 15. But that being said, as long as they keep up the writing that they've been doing and they keep up just the good classic humor and kind of the references to 80s TV shows and movies, yeah, they'll do great again. Truly looking forward to that. The other shows I've seen one episode of I've probably seen like 3 episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and that was Relationship Required. And I've never seen Pretty Little Lies. I hear the book is really good though.
Yeah.
Personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds here with Trump time. I
like how
I
he
agree with you guys
segments it.
that Trump is very likely to win, but I would like a discussion at some point, if possible, to see what would it take for Trump to not win, regardless of who would beat him. Right now, I believe he's polling somewhere in the low 40% nationwide, and that's a pretty good base. And with our plurality voting, not needing a majority, there might not be a lot of third-party candidates, but there will be some. It doesn't seem like he needs a whole lot more to put him over the top. But what do you guys see as ways that he might lose this election? Thank you.
I think that here you go ahead first because I have a few thoughts on it.
The only ways that I could see him losing this election is if the economy crumbles.
Yeah.
If the economy just crumbles in the next 6 to 8 months, he loses this election. If he goes to war with Iran, that's a coin flip for me on whether or not he wins or loses.
I would have said that hurts him, but Matt brought up either the last episode or the episode before that, as far as we could tell, no wartime president hasn't gotten reelected. Like they all get reelected.
George Bush Sr. made his mistake was he ended the war.
He ended the war in Iraq, which was good, but it also probably cost him the reelection. So yes, obviously if the economy goes under, all bets are off. I don't see Trump winning. Assuming the economy continues to do okay / well, then I think he'll get reelected. Another thing that could happen is if, first of all, you have to remember, so people get focused on the percentages. He only really needs, because he's a Republican and where his base of support is, he really only needs about 46% of the vote, which is what he got last time. Third-party candidates take anywhere between 3 and 5% of the vote, so that, that eats into the total amount. But then also, Hillary beat him by 2 percentage points and like several million votes, but they were concentrated in New York and California.
Not if you count the illegal voters.
Well, yeah.
Not if you count the illegal voters.
The illegal voters pulled her over the top. Up until then, he was winning the popular vote.
He won the popular vote, unless you count the illegal voters.
The millions of illegal voters that no one could find. Assuming that those hidden illegal voters continue into this next election cycle, Trump really only needs to get like 46%, and he needs to keep his support in the Midwest, which is why he's doing all this populist crap that we hate so much. Like, that's why he's doing, that, and he believes in it, but his populist, economically illiterate, trade protectionism garbage is what blue-collar workers like. So, and remember, like, he could lose Pennsylvania and either Wisconsin or Michigan and still win. So he's got some like padding there from the last election cycle. But yeah, I think if the economy does well, there are a lot of hidden Trump voters. They'll even say like, yeah, I don't like Trump because it's popular to not like Trump and unpopular to like Trump. But they show up and vote for Trump and maybe not even tell anyone. We saw that in Pennsylvania. The polling had him getting blown out. Really up until the end, and he ended up pulling it out. And same things in Wisconsin and Michigan. There were polls there that showed that Hillary might be in trouble, but not like that. And
right.
So
called it for.
What's that?
Pennsylvania called it for Hillary early, and they had to retract it.
Yeah, because he came back in all the rural areas. And so, what happened was he did way better in the suburbs than they expected with blue collar, blue and like higher level, union workers. Basically, they knew he'd do well in the rural areas. They knew he'd do poorly in the cities, and they figured he'd do about the same as other Republicans in the suburbs. And he didn't. He did way better. So I don't see a Democrat out populisting him, but maybe they could. I'd sooner say really the biggest thing is the economy. If the economy goes south, then he's not gonna win it on the power of his personality, put it that way.
Right. It's the economy, stupid.
Yeah.
Personal injury attorney Chris Reynolds here with your AOC Millennial Minute.
The second one.
So the
I almost feel like
Electoral College has been much maligned recently, and I wanted to hear kind of the libertarian / Matt and Spike's view on the Electoral College. Electoral College, I think, is intended to reserve power to the states over the federal government in a sense. So it would seem to be something that libertarians would favor over other methods of electing a president. However, I don't know. So do you guys favor the Electoral College over something else? And if it is something else, what would that something else look like? Thank you.
Matt, I'll let you give your pretend minarchist view first.
Right. Yeah. I was like, I know Spike's answer to this, and it's so
Pretty
the
simple.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if anybody caught in like minute 34 or whatever, but so the libertarian thought process on the Electoral College is that yes, the Electoral College was put in place so that way major states would not be able to govern over the smaller states.
Right.
That the Electoral College was, its initial intention was that places like California, well, obviously not California because that wasn't around then, but like the more populous states would not be able to tell states like Rhode Island how they had to run Rhode Island.
Right.
And that was the initial intention. If you get rid of the Electoral College, the amount of people that live in San Francisco, Chicago, LA, New York, Dallas, St. Pete, Tampa, Miami, Orlando. Did I say New York? I said New York.
Yes, you said New York, I think.
And in Boston.
Yeah.
Is enough to win the election.
Yeah.
Enough to win the election. And the people in those areas, then theoretically, if all of them voted one way, that would be enough for those people to decide how everybody else in the country has to live their lives. So yeah, the libertarians who still think that we need a government, they think that they think that we need the Electoral College. Yes, I think that as long as we have the government, yes, the Electoral College is the best way to go about it, because they are not abolishing elections for federal office anytime soon.
Not this cycle anyway, no.
And I don't want them to get rid of the Electoral College because I don't want those cities telling my state how it has to govern itself.
Right. So historically, the reason for it, so yes, the Electoral College was to make sure that big states couldn't bully the smaller states, basically. But it also goes down to the fact that coming out of the Articles of Confederation, which was a very, very loose alliance of the each of the individual states, and going into the Constitution, which was a much more centralization of power into a strong federal government that had the power to tax, they had the power to conduct wars and declare wars, they had the power to do all of these different things that the previous confederated government didn't have. One of the compromises there was that they were still, in theory, independent, semi-autonomous states. And one of those was saying, so, and that worked its way into their elections as well, that when you're picking a president, it's not the American people picking a president, it's each state having an election for who they want to be president. And so that's what that whole thing was. And you can go even deeper, and it used to be that it was more of a suggestion to the Electoral College how they should pick presidents and so forth. But the bottom line is that each state was saying, we as the state of South Carolina, Florida, California, New York, Illinois, whatever, Nebraska, we're picking the president. What's that?
Canada.
Yeah, Canada. We're deciding who we as a state want to be president, and then we're counting our points up with everyone else too. It was a representative form of doing it. The bottom line, because I'm an anarchist, where are we at?
You've already said it. We don't need to mark another one.
I like to mark it each time. Minute 37:20. All of this speaks to the inherent failings of democracy. And yes, a constitutional republic is a form of democracy. You are using a democratic process to pick your representatives. It's not a direct democracy where you're directly voting on legislation. You're voting through a proxy, blah, blah, blah. It's a democracy. Any system wherein everyone is forced into the system. If you want to live on your property, if you want to, do business where you live, if you want to, continue living the way that you live, you have to be a part of, you are a subject of the state, period. You can't get out of it. You have to pay those taxes. You have to follow the regulations and rules. And so what they give you is the option to be a citizen, assuming that you weren't already born one, and to vote in the election. It's like if a hostage taker took us all hostage and then gave us a vote on what to have for lunch each day and then still just gave us whatever they were going to give us anyway.
Right.
That's how democracy works. And each of these things, term limits, the electoral college, any of these things that are done to protect us from the worst impulses of mankind, they're all acknowledgments that democracy is a proven failure. If democracy worked, we wouldn't need all these protections. Protections from what? Us. They're protections. We say the smaller states from the bigger states. We're all people. What you're saying is, I don't like those people over there and I don't want them to decide how I live my life. Well, that's democracy. In any system, yes, you can find ways to blunt it or, to have a representative instead of voting directly on it or whatever. It's all the same thing. People are voting to they use their vote as an act of proxy violence where they say, okay, I want you to do the things against those people that you promised to do and to leave me alone. And that's what democracy is. It's not a good system. And so if we're going to have this system, if I were still a minarchist or a conservative or whatever you want to call it, libertarian, I would be in favor of the electoral college because it gives at least some semblance of autonomy to the states, and it makes it so that, like, whatever it is, the top dozen cities don't control the federal election. It doesn't render, like, the majority of people who live in the bottom 20% from being able to have a say in elections. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's neither here nor there. But yeah, if I were in favor of government, I would say the electoral college needs to be preserved, and not because it favors Republicans, but just because it needs to. Because I don't like Republicans, but it needs to. You have to have some semblance of autonomy for the states. So speaking of,
real quick, breaking news from one of our regular listeners who apparently got Facebook banned.
Oh no,
Lee Iacocca has passed.
Well, that sucks. Lee Iacocca, who he rescued Chrysler from bankruptcy, turned the company around during the 80s, and then ended up coming, or the 70s and 80s, and ended up coming out with the DeLorean.
He didn't come out with the DeLorean.
Didn't he? Lee Iacocca?
Lee Iacocca did not come out with the DeLorean. That was the DeLorean Motor Company. That was John DeLorean. And then he was using his business to ship cocaine. And that's why the DeLorean went away.
So Lee Iacocca's dead. I thought he had something to do with the DeLorean.
I don't think he had anything to do with the DeLorean.
Lee Iacocca.
I'm pretty certain he had nothing to do with it. I'm pretty certain that was John DeLorean, who recently, fun fact, the DeLorean Motor Company, John DeLorean's still in prison, but they were going to be re-releasing the DeLorean as of a couple of years ago, and the government told them no because it was property of the U.S. government. All designs.
Oh, because of they seized it in the drug thing.
Yep.
Well, why wouldn't they license it and make money?
Because it's the federal government. They like spending money. They don't make it. They steal it.
I could have sworn Lee Iacocca. Anyway, Lee Iacocca dead. Very sad.
Dead.
Very sad, guys. Okay, cool. So, speaking of things from the 80s, Donald Trump has did a lot of stuff we were talking about earlier. He went to North Korea after his visits to China and Japan. He is the first, and it happened from a tweet, right? He tweeted that he'd like to meet with.
Yeah, he was on his way back from China and Japan. He was like, just had these great meetings with the leaders of China and Japan. And if the Rocket Man, he didn't call him the Rocket Man, but if the Rocket Man sees this, I would be happy to meet him at the border of North and South Korea to shake his hand and say hello.
And Rocket Man Kim Jong-un said sure, and then he went to North Korea, shook Kim Jong-un's hand, and became the first, because they met at the DMZ, and then he became the first sitting president to step foot on North Korean soil. Basically, the first president who wasn't Jimmy Carter to step foot on North Korean soil. Again, so Matt, you can tell me if you disagree. I don't think anything's going to come from any of this. We're not going to go to war with North Korea. North Korea is not going to stop their nuclear program, and it's not going to result in anyone going to a nuclear war. North Korea wants nukes for two reasons. One, so that we don't bomb them, because the U.S. government doesn't bomb countries with nukes, and neither do other countries. You don't bomb countries with nukes. And two, they get to say, we're going to nuke everyone if you don't give us soybeans because we're all starving to death. And so that's what's going to happen there. Nothing's going to change. I'm happy to see
some form of diplomacy.
Yeah, I'm happy to see them not threatening to kill each other, because they're not the ones that do that. They send all of your friends and neighbors to go and kill their friends and neighbors. So I'm happy with that. So I'd say that's a good thing.
Yeah, I would agree that it's a good thing. Someone somewhere, I'm certain, sitting in a room much like this one, probably much like the one that I'm sitting in, with much more color and not wearing some hipster pop singer t-shirt, but instead wearing a very red shirt with a hammer and sickle or Che Guevara's face on it, calling himself a Stalinist, was upset that Trump was hanging out with and possibly showing support for a brutal dictator.
Yeah,
and real mad, real upset about it.
So Occupy Democrats had a meme where they're like, Donald Trump went to North Korea where there's, and it like listed all the terrible things about North Korea. And it's like, yeah, North Korea sucks. Where were you the last 20 years while we were all saying that communism sucks? Like, now you're mad because Trump, if Trump was bombing North Korea or threatening to bomb North Korea, they go, Donald Trump's crazy. North Korea did nothing wrong. But then, and again, Republicans are no better with this stuff. This is partisan hypocrisy, but it is hilarious to watch communists and communist sympathizers get upset about diplomacy with actual communists, or state socialists, or whatever you want to call them. I think it's hilarious, and I want more of it. I want more of Donald Trump being diplomatic, and I want more of the left being mad that new wars aren't being started. I want more of that.
Well, that's good, because I have a feeling that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think so. Now, in some not so good Trump news, the Trump administration and the Department of Justice, which is the Trump administration, are thinking about destroying privacy freedoms for all of us again. So, senior Trump administration officials met last Wednesday during my show, oddly enough, to discuss whether to seek legislation prohibiting tech companies from using forms of encryption that law enforcement can't break. So like iMessage on iPhones, WhatsApp, which I use, Signal, etc. They have unbreakable encrypted messaging. So when you send it on there, you know that no one other than the intended recipient can get it, meaning the government can't get it. They don't like that. They want to be able to get all the things. Which is weird, because I was specifically told that government only wants to get these things with a warrant, and if they had a warrant, then they could just get it. They could just get it because they have a warrant saying you have to unencrypt this. But they, for some reason, want the ability to get it without having to get a warrant, which is odd.
That is odd. I wonder why they would want that.
Why would they want to do that?
So the Department of Justice and the FBI have been arguing that catching criminals and terrorists should be the top priority, even if watered down encryption creates hacking risks.
Yeah, because it does that too. Yeah.
Your private data means absolutely nothing. The fact that you could have your identity stolen means absolutely nothing. But this is in the name of terrorism. This is winning the war on terror. That is what they are saying. That is their argument.
Yep.
Somehow the Commerce and State Department disagreed with some semblance of common sense and pointing to economic security and diplomatic consequence mandating encryption backdoors. And the Department of Homeland Security is oddly divided.
That's odd. Why would they be divided? Maybe there's some people in there. Yeah.
I think that there are some people in the Department of Homeland Security who are worried about what their messages say.
Wait. Not WhatsApp.
Wait, we're going to do WhatsApp as well?
Like, oh, that's a great idea. They're deleting their WhatsApp account.
I gotta do some stuff here.
Give me a minute. I just gotta see how I feel about
let's
that.
Not do that backdoor encryption yet. Let me get this done.
No, that's good. I think you should do it.
That sounds like a good goal.
Yeah. Give the Department of Homeland Security a week, and they won't be divided anymore. So if you guys recall, in 2015 in San Bernardino, California, there was a terrorist attack. It actually killed one of my friends, Nicholas Thalasino. And he, in that attack, there was a locked iPhone belonging to one of the shooters. And the Department of Justice went to Apple, not asking them to unlock that phone, but to give them the code or the key basically, the backdoor to unencrypt all iPhone messages, iMessages, and Apple said, no, we're not doing that. Right. And they won that case, right?
So yes and no.
Okay.
What? Yeah, I'm offline.
Yeah, it completely cut us off. Oh, no, we're back online. Okay.
So when the Department of Justice went to Apple and they said, hey, will you build a backdoor into all iPhone? Because there isn't a way to do it. There is no way to do it. Apple doesn't have a key to do this. They said, we need you to build this. And Apple said, no, we're not going to do it. And people everywhere cheered that, at least Apple seemed to be on the side of privacy. And they took him to court. Somebody, I think the first judge says, no, you have to do it. They appealed it. The second judge says, no, you don't have to do it. I think they ended up coming to some sort of an agreement, but it's completely sealed on what that agreement was. And I think Apple just unlocked the phone. Right.
Oh, okay. But just that phone.
Just that phone. They didn't give them the key to do it. I think that they just unlocked that phone. I don't know. There was no precedent set in anything. Like there's
right.
Record of exactly how all of that ended. All I know is Apple didn't give them a key to unlock all iPhones.
Right. So former FBI head James Comey said that Apple was creating a space beyond the reach of law enforcement, which is, yeah. Technically,
which we all should have.
All spaces are supposed to be beyond the reach of law enforcement unless they get a warrant. Like, that's how it's supposed to be. They're supposed to be beyond the reach. This whole idea of law enforcement can grab stuff anytime they want because it makes their job easier. That's not. I mean, to put it in perspective, more Americans are killed in animal attacks every year than in terrorist attacks. More Americans are killed by sharks and bears. And it's not because a lot of Americans are being killed by sharks and bears. It's because terrorism is not this gigantic threat that they try to make it out to be.
I think like one person dies from a shark a year.
Yeah, it's in 01 before the 9/11, there were like 3 people that got killed by sharks, and I remember all media coverage was about Chandra Levy and what's his name that they thought killed him, and it turned out he didn't. But Chandra Levy. Yes, and I know, yeah. and Shark Attack. That can be our next song.
Eminem's a rapper, if you don't know.
Eminem, the rapper Eminem.
Right.
Shark Attacks and Chandra Levy, both of whom were greater threats than terrorism prior to 9/11. But with the exception of 9/11, even on 9/11, it was more dangerous to be in a car than on a plane. I mean, I'm just trying to put in perspective the threat of terrorism. The threat of terrorism is not, it's not high, especially when you consider the fact that the TSA's never caught a terrorist. They're not catching terrorists. They're spending money to create a bunch of fake jobs and spy on you. And your stuff is supposed to be secure from unwarranted search and seizure. And if it's secure from unwarranted search and seizure, then why do they need to be able to unencrypt your stuff without a warrant?
Right.
So that's the end of that. So
yep. And they're gonna use the old adage.
Oh yeah.
If you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
Sorry. Snowden kind of pointed to, yeah, we do. Yes, we do.
We have a lot to worry about. And then also, wrong usually means a politician wrote it down on a sheet of paper that you shouldn't be able to do it. So wrong is also relative. Like, if the only laws were, you can't murder people, you can't rape people, you can't, because we're against rape, you can't rob people, you can't embezzle money, you can't actually harm another person in some way, that would be one thing. Then the rules would be to protect us from wrong. The vast majority of rules are like, you can't drive with your taillight out. And like stupid crap that has nothing to do with actually protecting anyone from anyone else. It's about collecting revenue and controlling your life. And there's no good reason for them to be able to do all of that. So we're against it.
We are. It's like when the DC sniper.
Yeah, yeah.
Whatever his moniker was, when he was sniping, they were using that as an excuse to get into everybody's car that they pulled over, and they
right.
not having a taillight, and yeah, they were like, "Oh, we want to look in your car," and I was much dumber at the time, and also really nervous because I had highly illegal drugs on me, and
damn you, DC sniper.
Yeah, and I had to figure out how to not let them find the drugs, which was my main concern. And good news is they didn't find the drugs.
Oh, good.
So
good.
yeah, so I didn't end up in federal prison for what I had. It was a very, very hard 45 minutes. Like that's not even like a double entendre of any kind. Like that was just, I was sweating the entire time going, I will go to federal prison.
Oh, I can imagine. It's tough. Like we were just on the border and we had nothing to worry about. We were going to get some stuff at Walmart. Like, I mean, we didn't, but they check the back and they open up the hatch and you're like, you're worried for no reason because they're like, so I mean, if you actually have something, then now you're really worried. You're worried for a reason. But yeah, this whole, if you're not doing anything wrong. Oh, you mean like the fact that the vast majority of Americans commit a felony every single day, or at least, several misdemeanors? Like it's absurd. So we're against it, but I'll tell you what we're not against. My show.
I didn't know where that was going.
And tomorrow, guys, is the 1 year anniversary of my show, My Fellow Americans. And that's a big deal because it didn't seem like it's been
so much in the last year.
I have, well, mostly in facial hair, but I have grown. And my show is a lot less rough than it used to be. And so for the special, the 1 year anniversary special of My Fellow Americans, I'm having on an equally special guest, Mr. Jason Lyon, the newest addition to the Muddy Waters Media empire. He's the host of Mr. America, The Bearded Truth, and he's coming on to talk about the stuff he's doing. And we'll also be answering your questions and thoughts. It's an Ask Us, and it's not an AMA because it's two of us. It's an AUA, an Ask Us Anything episode. So be sure to inbox us here, or me personally, or Jason, or comment with your questions, and we will answer them live tomorrow starting at 8 p.m. Eastern. And then on Thursday, oh, you don't have a show because it's
Yeah, because it's 4th of July, and as we learned from Spike's inaugural episode, nobody watches on 4th of July.
No one watches on the 4th of July, especially if it's about bashing the founders. But here's the thing. Go out there on the 4th of July and celebrate that time that our founders fought to take away to take the ability to tax and kidnap us from the crown. Eat some hot dogs. Shoot off some Roman candles. Why are they called Roman candles? Are those actual, like, is that the kind of candles they used in Rome?
No.
Oh, honey, it's dark in here.
I don't think Chinese gunpowder was in Rome at the time.
Honey, it's hottest and it's darkest in here. Let me and then
this bright light that will light everything up.
It's light. The kiddicuses. Anyway, it's a terrible Roman joke.
Careful of the kiddiths.
The kiddises. Oh, it's in his eyes. And then on Friday, be sure to tune in to Jason's show, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth. Then have a great weekend. Tune into Jason's show on Monday, Mr. America, the Bearded Truth. And then come right back here to us on Tuesday night for the Mighty Waters of Freedom. What's that?
For episode 108.
Episode 108, which we haven't titled yet, but it'll be a great title. It'll be maybe even as good as the title for this episode.
Maybe.
So Matt,
it'll probably be. It won't reach the heightened levels of episode 107. Or sorry, 106 of episode 106.
The one I named?
Yes.
Episode 106, Trump rapes Iran in a concentration camp.
Yes, that one.
That was almost as good as our intro music. So guys, thanks for tuning in. And Matt, if someone were looking to find us online, how would they do that?
So if somebody wanted to find us online, I highly recommend that they go to Facebook and find us at facebook.com/muddiedwatersmedia. They can also find us on Instagram at muddiedwatersmedia. You can find us on Twitter at muddied_waters. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/muddiedwatersmedia. And you can find us on anchor.fm at anchor.fm/muddiedwaters. And you can also find this and every other episode at muddiedwatersmedia.com.
Well, that's very good. So guys, thanks again for tuning in. We will see you next week. And where we're going,
we don't need roads.
Crazy bitch. Crazy bitch. Crazy bitch.
Going to your place, and now you got to freak me out. Scream so loud, getting f***ing laid. You want me to stay, but I got to make my way. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of me when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back.
My neck, my back, lick my pussy and my crack. My neck, my back, lick my pussy and my crack.
Take it off, the paper is your game. You jump in bed with fame. Another one not paid for. You're so fine, it won't be a loss. Cashing in the rocks, just to get you face to face. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you f*** so good. I'm on top of it when I dream. I'm doing you all night, scratches all down my back.
My neck, my back, lick my pussy and my crack. My neck, my back, lick my
scratches all down my back to keep me right on. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you so good I'm on top of it when I dream I'm doing you all night. Scratches all down my back. Come on. Hey, you're crazy bitch, but you so good I'm on top.